Alrighty, everybody, welcome into the live stream. Testing, testing, 1, 2. I'll be right with you in just a few minutes. I'll be right with you guys. Alrighty, everybody, welcome into this late afternoon live stream, urgent, important live stream covering Hurricane Idalia that is right now off of the Gulf Coast of Florida, currently to the west of Tampa Bay, Florida, and is going to hit the Big Bend region of Florida near Cedar Key, Florida by the time we go into early tomorrow morning. So we don't have a lot of time left to prepare. We've already got evacuation orders. We have a state of emergency in Florida right now, and we're not trying to scare you guys. We're just trying to prepare you guys. So this is going to be my last update on this storm, as again, it is expected to make landfall in the Big Bend region of Florida early tomorrow morning. So let me check, just make sure the audio is working. It looks like it is. Hey, Blaze Weather. What's up, Brandon? How are you? Okay, so let's get straight into what we're talking about right now. So this is the current infrared satellite imagery with Category 2 Hurricane Idalia here to, again, off the Gulf Coast, the western coast of Florida right now. You can see an eye is trying to develop there. We've got strong thunderstorms on the outer eastern parts of the storm as well right now. So that's what it looks like right now. Again, the storm is strengthening. Could be a Category 3 hurricane by the time it makes landfall, but no matter if it's a Category 2 or a Category 3 here, we still need to be prepared for the worst. We need to be prepared for Category 4. You know, we need to be really prepared if we're in that Big Bend region of Florida right now. Yeah, I wish I was too. Okay, so let's look at the cone of uncertainty, which there's not much uncertainty anymore, but there's a little bit. And you can see we're expecting major Hurricane Ian to go into, again, Category 3 status by the time we go into late tonight there, again, to the west of Tampa Bay, Florida. You can see that M signifying major hurricane status. And then landfall is expected early Wednesday morning, so we're talking probably around 2 a.m. there in the Big Bend region of Florida. So near Cedar Key, Florida, that's where we have those hurricane warnings. We have hurricane warnings from Apalachicola, Florida, all the way down to Tampa Bay and St. Petersburg, Florida. So a large area where we're going to be dealing with the big-time impacts from Hurricane Idalia. Again, this storm is very strong, and you need to be very prepared for it. And then on the coast of North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and there on the Atlantic coast of Florida, we do have tropical storm warnings, as we are expecting effects from the storm on the Atlantic coast of the United States as well. And this orange area, you might be thinking, what the heck is that? Well, that is the tropical storm force winds wind field, and that has been growing over the past couple of hours and is about to come into the Tampa Bay area, Sarasota, Florida area. So these winds are about to start coming ashore. And we are also have been seeing a lot of thunderstorms right now in Florida as well. The severe weather aspect is also an aspect we usually see with these tropical cyclones. So again, here's the cone of uncertainty. It gets wider as we go farther out, and you can see we're expecting a landfall somewhere in between Apalachicola, Florida, and Cedar Key, Florida. Could this shift a little bit more to the southeast? I think that's possible, but it doesn't really matter. If you're in these hurricane warnings, no matter where the cone of uncertainty is, you really do need to be prepared, because as you can see with this wind field, we really are going to be seeing effects outside of this cone, and that's something people don't really know, is that the effects do range outside of the cone. Now maybe up here in North Carolina, this is probably where the main effects are going to be, but as you can see, the effects from Hurricane Idalia here in Florida, they're going to be much wider than this cone of uncertainty, which again confuses a lot of people, unfortunately. Let me just check the chat. Okay. Moderately strong Cat 3, probably, yeah. Maybe a low on Cat 4, but it doesn't really matter. Okay, now let's look at the hurricane force wind speed probabilities, preliminary. And you can see we do have likelihood of those near Cedar Key, Florida, near Apalachicola, Florida. Again, this Big Bend region of Florida where we just saw that cone, that's where we're expecting those hurricane force deadly winds. You don't want to be caught in those winds. These are winds that can sweep you off your feet. very, very strong winds, Category 2, Category 3, possibly strong, like Mr. Storm just mentioned in the comments. They're moderately strong, Category 3. So again, we've got to be prepared for hurricane force winds. This is not a tropical storm anymore. This is a hurricane that's about to turn into a major hurricane. So you really do need to be watching out for those strong winds if you are riding out that storm. And you can see these go a little bit inland as well. The storm will weaken to a tropical storm status again as she goes inland, but we're still going to likely see some hurricane force winds inland, so not just the coastal areas, maybe inland towards a place like Live Oak, Florida there as well, in Gainesville, Florida. Now here are the earliest reasonable arrival time of tropical storm force winds, which will likely be hurricane force winds, especially for the Big Bend there. And you can see by 2 a.m., that's probably when we're going to see our landfall here. There near Cedar Key, Florida. 8 a.m. for a place like Jacksonville, Florida. Wednesday, 2 p.m. for a place like Myrtle Beach, Florida. Wednesday, around 6 p.m. for a place like Charleston, Florida. And then around 9 to 10 p.m. for a place like Wilmington, North Carolina. Again, those are going to be tropical storm force impacts. But down here into Florida, that's going to be hurricane force impacts. Those very, very, very significant impacts, which are expected, and you really need to be extremely prepared for that. So now this is something that I really like to show. It's the potential storm surge flooding map or inundation map. So this is where we could see places inundated with water. So dry ground right now isn't going to be dry ground for long in a place like Cedar Key, Florida, which is actually an island. There's one way in, one way out. This road right here, that's the one way in and the one way out. And you can see lots of Cedar Key is going to be flooded. That road is going to be flooded. So if you want to evacuate, you got to do it now before the storm surge starts coming in by the time we go into late tonight and into early tomorrow morning and then the rest of the day Wednesday. As you can see, the swampy kind of marshy area here on the Big Bend from Apalachicola down towards Cedar Key, down towards Homosassa Springs, it's all going to be covered up in water. And even these inland waterways, if you're living along these inland waterways like Fanning Springs here as well, we are going to see flooding and storm surge along those inland waterways. So if you're up towards Gainesville, those inland waterways, we really need to be careful because flooding is going to be a big problem, not just on the coast with that storm surge, but these rivers and creeks that flow into the inland areas. We're going to have to also be watching you guys there. Now down towards Homosassa Springs, Spring Hill, same situation. Lots of areas being inundated with water. Thankfully, this is not a high population area. This is not a Fort Myers type situation, so that's good. But there's still people that live there, and they are important. They do matter, so we really need to be watching out for them. They should have been evacuated by now, but if you're trying to ride out this storm, you really got to be careful with that storm surge. Now, Tampa, this is an area we really want to focus in on, as St. Petersburg, Tampa Bay area is very prone to storm surge. So those houses here on those islands here and down towards Sarasota and along the bay, along Hillsborough Bay, along, of course, Tampa Bay and Old Tampa Bay here, they're going to be flooded. So these docks, these marinas, these stores, all of that is going to be flooded. Large portion of downtown Tampa Bay, these coastal areas, again, those inland areas as well, and over towards Riverview, all of these areas in the in the yellows, the blues, and the oranges are going to be inundated with water. So there's just a look at that. Look at all these areas that are going to be inundated. Places like Treasure Island, places like Madero Beach here as well. And places like St. Pete Beach as well. Boca Chica Bay, I'm sorry if I'm getting that wrong. All of these places, Gulfport as well, are going to be inundated with water. And a lot of people aren't realizing this, but this is a big problem that we deal with in Tampa Bay. With Hurricane Ian, we actually had water sucked out of Tampa Bay. We didn't have big impacts. But with Hurricane Idalia on that eastern edge of the storm, we're going to see that storm surge come into the bay and go over the coast of the bay and causing big flooding issues. So you really need to be prepared for that. I've been seeing people putting up the new aqua fence that keeps storm surge out of places. Also, sandbags is a good idea. The new Flex Seal product to seal up your home is a good idea as well. So again, St. Petersburg, Tampa, Clearwater, up through Spring Hill, Homosassa Springs, and Cedar Key over towards Apalachicola really need to be prepared for that intense flooding threat that we're having to watch out for here. Now, let's look at the flash flooding threat, because this is a huge threat that's not just for the coastal region, but also for the inland region. So Tallahassee, Florida, Augusta, Georgia, where the Masters is played, Wilmington, North Carolina, all of these areas are under moderate risk for flash flooding. Wouldn't be surprised if it turns into a high risk for flash flooding situation here, because we're just going to have this training of moisture. What we deal with a hurricane. We have a constant training of rain, and that's going to create lots of flooding on those inland waterways there, on the banks of those inland waterways. So a place like Gainesville, Florida, Live Oak, Florida, again, Tallahassee, Florida, up through portions of Georgia, including Augusta, Georgia, and then up through parts of South Carolina, including Columbia, South Carolina, and then up through portions of southern North Carolina, including Wilmington, North Carolina. So again, the flash flooding threat is a huge threat that is overlooked, but flash flooding, at the end of the day, at the end of the year, it does take the most lives with these extreme weather events. So that's why you got to really be prepared if you're in a flash flood prone area, whether it's in rural areas or an urban area or a suburban area. You really want to be super prepared. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best here. But if you're in this moderate risk, even if you're in the slight risk for excessive rainfall and that flash flood risk, you really do need to be, I say it so much, but you really do need to be extremely prepared. Now let's look at the severe weather outlook for today. This does include Gainesville, down through Tampa, and as well as Sarasota. So the slight risk, 2 out of 5 risk for severe weather is in place for today. We already saw possible waterspout down near Fort Myers there, near Marco Island. So that was a problem we were watching out for. So tornadoes are going to be a problem we're going to have to watch out for. Of course, it's not going to be the biggest threat, but something to watch out for, especially on those inland areas near Orlando, Gainesville, even up towards Jacksonville and Daytona Beach, as we get these cells on this eastern edge of the storm that can go tornadic. And so that's why we do have that tornado threat. We'll have another slight risk tomorrow, up through the Carolinas. So again, be prepared for those hurricane impacts, but also in the back of your mind, you got to be thinking about those severe weather aspect as well. So let me just look at the chat. If you guys have any questions, please tell them to me right now, because I'm pretty done with the forecast for now. Yeah, I'm doing a lot better with the cold. So if you guys, if you have any questions, make sure to put them in the chat right now, because I'm happy to answer them. I want to get you guys as prepared as I can be. Again, hurricane warnings in the red, so up through Tampa and Sarasota, all the way to Apalachicola, Florida, Cedar Key, Florida, Homosassa Springs, Florida, Spring Hill, Florida. Really need to stay prepared out there. If you need to evacuate. Just do it. Better safe than sorry, you know what I mean? And then again, these places along the coast of North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and the Atlantic coast of Florida do also need to be prepared for tropical storm impacts. And those inland areas, I'm talking about Live Oak, Florida, Gainesville, Florida, Tallahassee, Florida. Also, those people need to be watching out for flash flooding. And especially that higher rise in water along those inland rivers that that go out to the ocean but come inland. So along the banks of those, we're probably going to see flooding from that storm surge. Sorry, just checking the chat. What's the wind estimate for South Georgia? I mean, we probably could get up to 60 mile per hour winds. You can see Idalia is expected to retain its hurricane status even into South Georgia, so I wouldn't be surprised if we get up to 80 mile per hour wind gusts. So you need to be prepared for that. Also, flooding is going to be an issue there in South Georgia as well. Do you think we will see 125 mile per hour winds? I mean, we could see a gust up to 125 mile per hour definitely during landfall, as we see that strong Category 3 making landfall, really pummeling with that eastern eye wall there. So yeah, I would say that's possible. Why is it taking long for central North Carolina to get in those tropical storm impacts? Oh, sorry, that was my map behind me. It fell again this time. Central North Carolina, we're probably not going to be seeing big impacts. Maybe a little bit of a marginal risk of severe weather. But no, as you can see, that cone of uncertainty, sorry about that, that cone of uncertainty does not include places like Raleigh, Durham, or wherever you live there. Because the track is supposed to go this way. It's likely not going to go this way. That's not what we're forecasting for right now. But could we see, the storm take this sort of path? Yes, so that would bring some more impacts there. But that's why they're not putting up those warnings or watches in that area. You're welcome. Okay, any more questions before we end the stream here? I'll be happy to answer those. Again, here's Ian right now, trying to form that eye. People and all these storm chasers are getting ready to intercept there near Cedar Key, Florida. I know Reed Timmer's there. Some of the Ridge Riders are there as well. So professional, incredible storm chasers. I'm expecting some incredible footage as this Hurricane Idalia makes landfall there on the Big Bend region of Florida. Again, we're expecting hurricane force winds. That's really big. That's really important. And that inundation is going to be really big here along the Big Bend region of Florida. You need to be evacuated if you're in Cedar Key. You need to be evacuated if you're Homosassa Springs as well. Yeah, my map keeps falling. It does it all the time. Every time I come into the weather studio, it's always gone down. We could even see storm surge down through Port Charlotte. It's not going to be as significant as Ian, but still could see, 2 to 4 feet. But we are expecting significant storm surge in this region. Actually, I need to show you the storm surge, peak storm surge, real quick. So let me do that for you. I'm going to go off of here. Okay, I don't know why this wasn't in the forecast, but here's the peak storm surge forecast. As you can see, the National Hurricane Center has upped the however much it was, 8 to 12 feet, I think, to 10 to 15 feet. That includes the Cedar Key region here in the Big Bend of Florida. 10 to 15 feet of storm surge. That's taller than every single one of you watching this video or watching this live stream right now. So that's going to cover up roads. It's going to cover up the road, the one-way road to Cedar Key, in and out of that place. Tampa Bay, we've upped that to 4 to 6 feet. So, taller than most of you guys watching this video. 4 to 6 feet of storm surge. That's big for that area. You really need to be prepared there. And if your house is just right on the water there, evacuate. That's not going to be a good situation. Yankeetown and Chassahowitzka, I'm not going to pronounce that right, sorry. We're talking about 7 to 11 feet to 6 to 9 feet here of storm surge. And then over towards Apalachicola, around 3 to 5 feet. Down towards Charlotte Harbor, we're talking about 2 to 4 feet. But the real epicenter of the storm surge issue is going to be here right along the Big Bend, which fortunately is not a very populated area, which is really good news. But if you live along the water, even if you live along the inland waterways, you do need to be extremely prepared for that storm surge. And that about wraps up. Thank you, Bo. That about wraps up this live stream. I hope you all have a good rest of your evening. This is my last update. One more thing, though. We are expecting some storm surge here on the Atlantic coast, anywhere from 1 foot to 4 feet of storm surge from the Flagler, Volusia County line all the way up towards Duck, North Carolina. I've actually been to Duck, but that doesn't matter. All of these areas, we're going to be watching for potential impacts from Hurricane Idalia as it goes off to sea off to the Atlantic Ocean. So again, have a great rest of your evening. That about wraps up this live stream. I hope I gave you as much info as I could.